The Galactic Council chamber was a masterpiece of precision and elegance, a vast, domed construct where the most advanced species in the known universe convened to govern the affairs of the stars. In the center, beneath a hovering array of holographic projections, sat the assembled representatives of the Council, their forms varying from towering insectoids to sleek, aquatic beings suspended in anti-gravity fields. Each of them had spent centuries refining their civilizations, perfecting technology, and mastering their respective domains. And then there were the humans. To most of the Council, the inclusion of Earth species had been little more than an experiment, a diplomatic gesture to the newest spacefaring race. Humans were seen as inefficient, their biology riddled with imperfections. Their movements lacked the fluid grace of the Elnari, whose gelatinous bodies adapted to any terrain. They lacked the neural synchronization of the Vector, who thought and acted as a collective. Most damningly, they lacked the natural armor, claws, or energy-based physiology that made other species formidable. It was not that humans were entirely dismissed. They had proven capable of innovation, after all, but their reliance on brute force solutions and their biological sluggishness made them a curiosity rather than a force to be reckoned with. Their ships were crude, their reflexes slow, and their manual dexterity laughable compared to the precision of an AI-controlled combat drone. To most Council members, the humans were a species best suited for trade and diplomacy, not warfare. That belief held firm until the Zarkathi invasion. The attack had been sudden, a calculated strike on the outpost world of Vraxis, for a planet rich in rare minerals and a crucial hub for interstellar trade. The Zarkathi, a predatory and expansionist species, had no patience for diplomacy. Their forces had swept through the outer defenses of the Council's automated perimeter with terrifying efficiency, jamming targeting systems, rendering drones ineffective, and neutralizing sentient-controlled battlesuits before their pilots could react. Panic spread through the chamber. Council members argued, demanding solutions, yet every proposed tactic fell apart under scrutiny. The automated targeting arrays were blind. The tactical AI, normally so precise, was useless against the jamming field. And the Council soldiers, highly trained but reliant on technological superiority, were being slaughtered. It was then that the humans made their suggestion. We sent in a sniper. The words, spoken by Colonel Alastair Graves, the highest-ranking human in the Council's military advisory division, were met with silence. Then laughter. A sniper? The voice belonged to High Chancellor Rethak, a Vector whose body shimmered with faint pulses of bioelectric light. His kind prided themselves on logic, and this suggestion defied it. You propose that a single soldier with a projectile weapon can succeed where our most advanced war machines have failed? Graves didn't flinch. His people were used to skepticism. That's exactly what I'm proposing. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Some found the suggestion amusing, others insulting. The idea that a lone human, wielding what amounted to a relic of pre-space warfare, could alter the course of the battle was absurd. Chancellor Varesh of the Elnari tilted her translucent head, her bioluminescent eyes narrowing. "Explain, Colonel." Quickly, Graves gestured to a nearby display, where the battlefield layout flickered into view. The Zarkathi have disabled our automated defenses, but they can't disable human adaptability. They're using command nodes to coordinate their ground forces. If we eliminate their leadership, their assault will collapse. And you intend to do this with a projectile? Rethak's disbelief was palpable. What of atmospheric interference? Wind variables? Kinetic resistance? Graves allowed himself the faintest smile. You're assuming a machine is making the shot. He glanced toward the Council's human delegation, where a single figure stepped forward. This is Sergeant Daniel Carter. He'll be making the shot. The man was unremarkable by most galactic standards. Short by Council norms, his body carried none of the natural enhancements of the other species present. His uniform was plain, his stance relaxed but alert, like a predator at rest. What stood out most, however, were his eyes, sharp, calculating, and utterly devoid of hesitation. "I take it you've never seen a human sniper work before," Carter said, his voice calm. "Nor do we have any reason to," Varesh replied. Your kind has never demonstrated proficiency in ranged warfare beyond what our automated systems can accomplish. Carter exhaled through his nose, almost amused. Automated systems calculate probabilities. I don't. He stepped toward the display, pointing at the Zarkathi positions. Your machines rely on predictable targeting solutions. The Zarkathi know this and are exploiting it. A sniper doesn't fight the way a machine does. We fight with patience, with instincts, with an understanding of the battlefield that no AI can replicate. Rethak shook his head. Even if this is true, a single man cannot. Do you have a better idea? Carter cut him off. Silence. The council members exchanged glances, but no alternative came forth. Every logical solution had failed. Varesh leaned forward. If we allow this, what will you require? Carter's answer was simple. A rifle. In time, it was not an answer the council found comforting, but it was one they had no choice but to accept. Sergeant Daniel Carter lay motionless on the jagged terrain of Vraxis, for his body nestled into the uneven landscape as if he were part of it. The world's twin moons bathed the battlefield in a ghostly glow, casting elongated shadows across the shattered remains of the outpost. Wind swept across the valley, kicking up fine, metallic dust that shimmered like embers in the dim light. Somewhere below, the Zarkathi moved, confident in their hold over the ruins. Carter adjusted his scope. The rifle, an M32 Gauss sniper system, was a brutal blend of human ingenuity and raw precision. No energy bursts, no traceless plasma fire, just a high-density tungsten round accelerated to hypervelocity. It was primitive by galactic standards. It was also unstoppable. He exhaled slowly, scanning the landscape with the patience of a predator. The Zarkathi were unlike most council species. Hulking bipeds with chitinous armor, elongated limbs, and eyes that burned with predatory hunger. They weren't just warriors. They were hunters, bred for war, thriving on the chaos of combat. They had expected resistance from drones, automated turrets, mechanized infantry. What they had not expected was a man in the dark with a rifle. The council had dismissed him. He had seen in their eyes the way they viewed humans as inefficient creatures, bound by archaic instincts. Carter had stopped caring about proving them wrong. The battlefield did not reward pride. It rewarded results. He spotted movement near the remnants of an old supply depot, a cluster of Zarkathi officers surrounded by their guards. Even from this distance, he could tell they were commanders. Their armor gleamed with ceremonial etchings. Their posture exuded authority. They were strategizing, issuing commands, believing themselves untouchable. Carter adjusted his aim, dialing in wind speed, distance, and gravitational pull. The council thought in absolutes, calculations, algorithms, projections. But a sniper understood the battlefield as something alive, something that breathed and shifted. He didn't trust numbers alone. He trusted instinct. He steadied his rifle, heartbeat syncing with his breath. A gentle squeeze of the trigger. The silence of the night shattered with a distant, almost imperceptible crack. A split second later, the Zarkathi commander's skull erupted in a spray of dark ichor, his massive form crumpling to the ground. For a moment, the enemy hesitated, uncertain of what had just happened. Then chaos erupted. Carter shifted position, rolling away from his firing spot before the Zarkathi could pinpoint the shot. His hands moved with mechanical efficiency, chambering the next round as he crawled through the dust, relocating before they could react. Below, the Zarkathi barked commands in their guttural, clicking language. He could see the panic setting in, leaders falling without warning, soldiers scrambling for cover against an unseen threat. Their kind thrived on intimidation, on overwhelming their enemies with raw ferocity. But fear was a universal language, and Carter was fluent in it. The second shot came swift and merciless, another officer collapsing before his guards even realized what was happening. The remaining leaders ducked, their bravado melting into uncertainty. Carter let the silence stretch. He knew how to make them wait, how to let their fear grow in the void between kills. It was psychological warfare as much as it was physical. The Zarkathi weren't afraid of death. They were afraid of not knowing where it would come from. Minutes passed. The enemy repositioned, sending scout teams to locate him. Their technology was advanced, their sensors finely tuned, but they were looking for energy signatures, movement, a tactical pattern. Carter gave them none of it. He slowed his breathing, feeling the pulse of the planet beneath him. His ghillie suit blended with the environment, his body practically invisible against the terrain. He was patient. He could wait forever if necessary. One of the Zarkathi broke formation, a high-ranking officer attempting to flee toward the safety of a fortified transport. Carter tracked him through the scope, watching the way the alien moved. Hurried but erratic, his claws scraping against the stone as if sensing the inevitability of death closing in. Carter exhaled, a gentle pull of the trigger. The officer's body collapsed mid-stride, skidding lifelessly across the ground. The Zarkathi's entire advance began to falter. Their coordination unraveled, their soldiers growing desperate. He had seen this before, the moment when an enemy stopped thinking like a fighting force and started thinking like prey. He reached for his comms unit. Target leadership neutralized. Expect disarray. There was a pause before Colonel Graves' voice crackled through. Confirmed. A hesitation. Then quieter. Damn good work, Sergeant. Carter smirked, already moving to his next vantage point. The battle wasn't over. Not yet. The Zarkathi were unraveling. Their movements, once precise and overwhelming, had become erratic, driven more by fear than strategy. In the flickering glow of scattered fires, their towering forms hunched lower, scanning the darkness with wide, frantic eyes. They were hunters by nature, but they had never been hunted like this. Sergeant Daniel Carter shifted position again, silent as the dust settling around him. He had relocated twice since his last shot, his path deliberate, unpredictable. The Zarkathi had deployed tracking drones, crude attempts to pin him down, but they searched for what they understood: patterns, footprints, heat signatures. Carter gave them nothing. He settled into his new vantage point, resting the rifle against his shoulder, his scope slicing through the night. The battlefield had changed. Where once the Zarkathi had pushed forward with brute force, they now hesitated, waiting for something, anything, to tell them where the next death would come from. Their officers were gone, their squads fragmented, and yet some of them still clung to the belief that they could regain control. A figure stood in the wreckage of a collapsed command post, taller than the others, clad in reinforced armor etched with war sigils. Even at a distance, Carter recognized the difference. This one wasn't just an officer. He was a leader, a warlord. The Zarkathi rarely retreated, but Carter had seen enough battlefields to know that when they did, it was because someone higher up had made the call. If this warlord fell, there would be no one left to issue that order. He steadied his rifle, slowing his breathing. The shot would be difficult. Wind shifting unpredictably, the warlord pacing, helmeted, as if sensing that death had already taken an interest in him. Carter adjusted his aim, calculating every variable. There was no rush. A good sniper didn't take a shot until the shot was already won. He pulled the trigger. The round struck with devastating force, punching through armor, flesh, and bone. The warlord staggered, clawed hands reaching for something unseen, before crumpling to the ground. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, the retreat began. The Zarkathi broke, their formations collapsing entirely. Some fled into the night, vanishing into the shattered remains of the outpost. Others fell where they stood, unwilling to run but too afraid to advance. Without their command structure, without the constant push of orders driving them forward, their aggression had nowhere to go. Carter watched them go, his finger resting lightly on the trigger, but he did not fire. His work was done. A voice crackled through his earpiece. "Carter, report." He exhaled, his muscles finally acknowledging the weight of the hours spent in absolute stillness. Enemy leadership eliminated. They're in full retreat. A pause. Then Colonel Graves spoke, and there was something new in his tone, something Carter had never heard from the council before. "Respect." "Understood. Stand by for extraction." Carter didn't move immediately. He remained prone, eyes scanning the battlefield, committing the aftermath to memory. The council had thought humans clumsy, inefficient, lacking the precision of machines or the natural gifts of other species. But war was not won by grace. It was won by patience, by calculation, by the understanding that sometimes the most dangerous force in the universe was not the one with the largest fleet or the most advanced technology. Sometimes it was the one who could wait in the dark, unseen, unheard, and end a war with a single shot.